Abū Bakr al-Baqqillānī was born in Basra, one of the major intellectual centers of the Abbasid Caliphate in the 10th century. Basra had long been a hub for scholars of law, language, and theology, attracting students from across the Islamic world. He grew up surrounded by the sounds of debate and instruction, in a city bustling with scholars discussing jurisprudence, grammar, and religious interpretation. The environment shaped his early curiosity, giving him exposure to differing theological viewpoints, and instilling in him a love for structured argumentation and rational thought. His family belonged to a respected scholarly class, which encouraged education and learning from an early age. Although not aristocratic, they were well connected enough to facilitate his early studies with local scholars. This background provided him with both the resources and the social expectation to excel academically. It also allowed him to travel to prominent centers of learning, such as Baghdad, without facing significant barriers. The support of his family laid the foundation for his later achievements. From childhood, he studied the Quran, Hadith, and Arabic grammar with local teachers. These studies were essential for anyone pursuing scholarly work at the time, but he showed particular talent in debate and logical reasoning. He quickly mastered foundational texts and moved on to more advanced treatises on jurisprudence and theology. His teachers noted his ability to grasp complex concepts and articulate them clearly, skills that would define his later work. Seeking greater scholarly opportunities, he relocated to Baghdad, the intellectual heart of the Abbasid Caliphate. Baghdad was home to the greatest libraries, scholars, and debating circles of the Islamic world. There, he studied under prominent figures of the Ashʿarī school and was exposed to the ongoing debates between rationalist and traditionalist scholars. This move expanded his intellectual horizons, exposing him to a variety of ideas that he would later synthesize in his own work. In Baghdad, he began formal study of Islamic law, primarily within the Shafi'i school. He learned the principles of legal reasoning, the methods of deriving rulings from the Quran and Hadith, and the role of consensus among scholars. Jurisprudence taught him discipline in argumentation and the importance of evidence-based reasoning. These skills later influenced his theological writings, where he often applied legal-style logic to questions of doctrine. During his time in Baghdad, he witnessed the major theological debates of his era, particularly between the Ashʿarī school, the Muʿtazilites, and other emerging philosophical currents. He observed discussions on the nature of God's attributes, free will, and the createdness of the Quran. These debates were not merely academic. They had political and social implications, as rulers and religious leaders often aligned with one school or another. He became a devoted student and later a leading proponent of the Ashʿarī school. Founded by Abu al-Hasan al-Ashʿarī, the school sought a middle path between strict rationalism and literalist interpretations. It aimed to defend Sunni belief using reasoned argument without departing from revelation. He refined these principles, emphasizing logical clarity and systematic reasoning. His contributions helped solidify Ashʿarism as a dominant theological framework in Sunni Islam. The Ashʿarī school emerged in response to the Mu'tazilite emphasis on reason over revelation. Al-Ashʿarī sought to reconcile rational argumentation with traditional Sunni beliefs. He built upon this foundation, studying earlier Ashʿarī texts and identifying areas that required clarification or expansion. By examining the historical context of these debates, he understood how intellectual disputes were intertwined with political and religious dynamics of the Abbasid era, which informed his careful, methodical approach. Central to the school are beliefs in divine omnipotence, the reality of God's attributes, and the use of reason as a tool to support revelation. He emphasized that human reason is valuable but limited. It can clarify and defend faith, but cannot override the authority of Scripture. He illustrated this balance through detailed arguments on issues like predestination, human responsibility, and the nature of God's knowledge. Each point was presented systematically, demonstrating both rigor and accessibility. He faced opposition from Muʿtazilites, philosophers, and others who challenged Ashʿarī positions. He developed precise responses using logic, textual evidence, and analogies drawn from language and law. For example, he explained God's attributes in ways that avoided literal anthropomorphism while affirming their reality. His arguments often included counterexamples, careful definitions, and step-by-step reasoning. This method not only defended Ashʿarī thought, but also served as a model for subsequent generations. His training in Shafi'i law influenced his theological work. He applied legal reasoning techniques, such as analogy and principles of evidence, to theological questions. This approach allowed him to create arguments that were logically structured and persuasive. It also made his writings practical, connecting abstract theological ideas to the lived experiences and ethical responsibilities of Muslims. Through his teaching in Baghdad, he shaped a generation of scholars who carried his methods forward into later centuries. He emphasized clarity, patience, and careful argumentation in his teaching. Many of his students went on to teach elsewhere in the Islamic world, spreading his influence far beyond Baghdad. The emphasis on reasoned, text-based argument became a hallmark of Ashʿarī education. One of his notable contributions was refining the language used in theology. He carefully defined terms such as attribute, essence, and speech to avoid ambiguity. This precision allowed scholars across different regions to engage with his work without confusion. By standardizing terminology, he facilitated a more systematic study of theology. His approach also allowed later scholars to build upon his work more efficiently, creating a lasting intellectual legacy that extended well beyond his lifetime.